Hello and warm welcome to you, dear viewers of World News Program, streaming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Grifa Zachary, and up next are the top stories. Despite the international justice ruling, Zionist bombings persist in Rafah. Algeria heralds the end of impunity, and UN Chief Guterres confirms the decision's binding status, referring it to the Security Council. And the EU, for its part, urges full compliance. Within just 24 hours, 5 Zionist massacres killed 46 and numerous casualties were reported in the entity's bombings in northern Gaza Strip and Gaza City. That's next. Also coming up, World Health Organization warns of serious medical catastrophe due to hospital closures. Gaza Ministry of Health reports 20,000 wounded awaiting Rafah crossing, and the occupation kills 500 health workers. Also ahead, Algeria warns of grave consequences of Zionist aggression, urges practical measures to hold entity accountable for crimes, and calls for strong Arab international presence. Stay tuned, the details are right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off, in our topical news, on Sunday, following an International Court of Justice order to halt the Zionist aggression, occupation forces persisted in bombing Rafah city. Local media reported casualties among Palestinians, aggravating the humanitarian crisis in Gaza's southern region. Here's Zahra Farjani with the report.
The Zionist entity has once again demonstrated its blatant disregard for international laws and UN resolutions, including decisions of the International Court of Justice, which called for an immediate cessation of its aggression in Rafah. Instead of complying with the court's ruling, the occupation has intensified its attacks, resulting in further casualties. Following the International Court of Justice's decision, the occupation escalated its aggression on Rafah, launching a barrage of rockets that targeted neighborhoods and camps. The result has been a tragic loss of life, with numerous fatalities and injuries reported.
Israeli policies spanning the occupied Palestinian territory are unquestionably endangering Palestinian existence on their land, or what remains of their land. At this point, Israel has reneged on its international obligations to a degree that warrants an imperative implementation of immediate and unconditional sanctions, which should entail first and foremost an arms and oil embargo.
Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis in Rafah's last operational hospitals is worsening, with facilities overwhelmed and struggling to cope with the influx of victims from the ongoing Zionist aggression.
Today, amidst the bombing and destruction, we demand international protection for the Kuwait Specialized Hospital in Rafah from the Red Cross and the World Health Organization. This hospital is the only refuge for the sick and injured. There is no place for them to turn to.
Amid the entity's stubbornness, famine is intensifying in Rafah province as the occupation continues to deny entry to humanitarian aid convoys stacked up at the border crossing with Egypt.
The International Court of Justice's order underlines the gravity of the situation facing Palestinians in Gaza. The ICJ's decision opens up the possibility for relief, but only if governments use their leverage, including through arms embargoes and targeted sanctions, to press Israel to urgently enforce the court's measures.
The entity's defiance of decisions from the highest international judiciary body and its accusations of anti-Semitism against its judges exposes the true nature of the occupation to the global community. It underscores that the leaders of the self-proclaimed garden of democracy in the Middle East are in fact lawless killers.
And in related news, Algeria welcomed the International Court of Justice's order for the Zionist settlement occupation to cease aggression against Rafah. It noted this alongside the International Criminal Court's move towards issuing warrants against key officials. Algeria sees these actions as signaling the end of the Zionist impunity, long used for occupation, settlement, and discrimination against Palestinians. It urges the UN Security Council to reinforce the ICJ's order to hold Zionist crimes in Gaza and Rafah. For his part, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres affirmed the binding nature of the International Court of Justice's decision mandating the Zionist occupation to hold the aggression in Rafah, Gaza. His spokesperson, Stefan Dujarric, announced that Guterres will bring the ICJ's Gaza decisions to the UN Security Council's attention.
No release of hostages and the devastating offensive.
The Secretary General takes note of the order of the International Court of Justice delivered today in The Hague, indicating additional provisional measures in the case of South Africa against Israel concerning the, quote, application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip, end quote. In that regard, the Secretary General notes the court's decision to order Israel inter alia in accordance with its obligations under the Genocide Convention and in view of the, quote, the worsening conditions of life faced by civilians in the Rafah Governorate, end quote, to, quote, halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah Governorate.
UN Special Reporter on Palestine Francesca Albanese urged the international community to impose sanctions on the Zionist occupation. Writing on the X platform, she specifically called for the suspension of diplomatic relations until compliance with the International Court of Justice's decision.
They are all being.
While the International Court of Justice orders Israel to stop its attacks on Rafah, Israel is intensifying its attack on it. The news I am receiving from the people trapped there is terrifying. Israel will not stop this madness until we stop it. Member states must impose sanctions, ban arms, and suspend diplomatic and political relations with Israel until it stops its attack.
Palestinian national and Islamic forces embraced the International Court of Justice's decision to hold Zionist aggression in Rafah. In a statement on Hamas's official website, they urged all parties to enforce the ICJ ruling and emphasized the need to reopen Rafah's crossing and all parts of Gaza.
The national and Islamic forces welcomed the decision issued by the International Court of Justice, which reaffirmed the cessation of aggression against the city of Rafah and the reopening of the Rafah border crossing. The national and Islamic forces emphasized the need to stop the fascist aggression on the city of Rafah, as well as all parts of the Gaza Strip and Palestinian land, and the complete withdrawal of the Nazi occupation army. The national and Islamic forces warn against any attempt to circumvent the decision of the International Court of Justice and the demands of the national Arab consensus and all the free people of the world by seeking alternatives that would legitimize the blockade and occupation. They call on all parties to take serious and genuine action to implement the decisions of the International Court of Justice without delay or obstruction, in a manner that exempts the occupation from its responsibilities under various pretexts.
To another reaction now, the European Union urged on Saturday for the full and effective implementation of the International Court of Justice's orders. Josep Borrell, EU Foreign and Security Policy Representative, emphasized in a blog post on the X platform that the court's directives to cease aggression in Rafah are binding on all parties. Displaced Palestinians are hoping that the ICJ's orders would stop Zionist aggression in Gaza, ongoing for over 230 days amid a worsening humanitarian crisis affecting around 700,000 besieged Palestinians. Salma Nasib reports.
The displaced Palestinians hope that the orders of the International Court of Justice will be implemented to stop the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip. Salwa al-Masri, a displaced Gazan who was forced to leave her home by the Zionist 7-month-long Gaza offensive, has little hope her plight will be alleviated by the UN's top court ordering the Zionist entity to halt its offensive in Rafah. We call on the whole world to stop the war, implement this on the ground, stop. The words that they say, they will not stop the war. They shouldn't say one thing and the action is something different. Today, they say they want to stop the war. The massacres are only increasing. When they say there will be a solution, there was a meeting, there was a council or something, the genocide increases, the massacres increase. The decision of the International Court of Justice, which only ordered the end of the Zionist military operations in Rafah, disappointed the Palestinians that needed an immediate halt to the war.
First, I don't think the whole world will stop the war and genocides in Gaza, because the war, the invasion of Gaza started not on 7 October, but from 76 years. The International Court, I think it's a big play, but it's not good in this time, because the Palestinian people here in Gaza, children, men, women, we lost everything here in Gaza was completely destroyed.
We are with the World Court in implementing the decision for the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, from Rafah, and from all areas of the Gaza Strip completely. We have been moved from place to place. We are tired from being displaced from Gaza to Rimal, and from Rimal to Nusayrat, and from Nusayrat to Deir al-Balah, and then Zuwayda, and others are in Rafah. This is the struggle of the Palestinian people in general. I wish for all the nations to put pressure on the Israeli side to implement the decision and withdraw from all the Gaza Strip completely, and for normal life to resume.
The Palestinian Authority has welcomed the decision on Friday from the International Court of Justice by saying that it represents an international consensus to end a Zionist military operation that has killed more than 35,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza's health ministry. The operation has obliterated entire neighborhoods, sent hundreds of thousands of people fleeing their homes, and pushed parts of the territory into famine.
And in just 24 hours, Zionist forces conducted 5 massacres in Gaza, resulting in 46 deaths and 130 injuries. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported 35,903 martyrs and 80,420 wounded since the 232-day aggression began. Despite ICJ orders, bombings intensified, targeting Gaza and launching raids in Jabalia with artillery shelling along the eastern border. The Gaza Ministry of Health warns of an imminent medical crisis due to fuel depletion for hospital generators. While Palestinians persevere in running health facilities despite severe limitations. Sofian Kinturi has the story.
The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza is sounding the alarm over an imminent medical catastrophe as hospitals face complete shutdown. Few reservists powering vital electricity generators are dangerously low, heightening the threat to public health. Despite the shortages, healthcare workers are striving to maintain services at few operational facilities.
We need a ceasefire for this hell to stop so we can start moving forward. But we can't keep going if there's no ceasefire. It has been too long already, far too long, far too long.
Currently, 2/3 of Gaza's 36 hospitals are shuttered, with the remaining ones teetering on the brink of closure. Al-Aqsa Motors Hospital is grappling with partial shutdowns due to both shallow and dwindling fuel supplies, while the Kamal Adwan Hospital has been forced to close entirely. In addition, the blockade on Auda Hospital exacerbates the situation further. Despite the circumstances, the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis has managed to reopen and is providing crucial assistance to patients in need.
We are trying to mitigate as much as we can the risk. There's no place where you're 100% sure that you're going to be fine. But, well, we know it when we enter. So hopefully, inshallah, everything will be fine. But
amidst ongoing humanitarian aid and fuel blockades, compounded by restricted access through Gaza's crossings, the Zionist occupation continues to perpetrate atrocities against the Palestinian population. This includes deliberate targeting of medical infrastructure and personnel, preserving a campaign of extermination and starvation.
Palestinian Ministry of Health spokesperson Ashraf al-Qudra stated that over 20,000 wounded and sick individuals in Gaza face dire conditions due to the Rafah crossing closure by the occupation forces. He urged international intervention, citing the collapse of Gaza's health system from deliberate Zionist attacks on hospitals.
More than 20,000 injured in cancer, heart, blood disease patients are waiting the opening of the crossing under inhumane conditions due to the occupation, siege and imposed genocide war on civilians in Gaza. We appeal to the free world to save these victims from complications and death in the absence of most Palestinian health institutions in Gaza, which have been deliberately rendered out of service.
The Gaza Ministry of Health spokesperson also confirmed that around 500 health workers have been targeted or killed by the occupation forces, constituting a war crime and a violation of patients' rights.
The occupation has killed more than 493 health professionals and medical specialists, and at least 310 others have been arrested, which constitutes a war crime and a blatant violation of patients' rights and health provisions under international humanitarian law.
And in another development, the Executive Committee of the Arab Parliamentary Union met in Algeria, chaired by Algerian National People's Assembly Chairman Ibrahim Boughali. This precedes the 36th session of Arab Parliament Conference, which will address recent developments in the Arab world, particularly the dire situation in Palestine. And on this occasion, the Speaker of Algeria's lower house of parliament, Ibrahim Boughali, cautioned about severe implications stemming from alarming regional and global events, notably the Zionist aggression against Palestinians. During his address at the opening of the Executive Committee meeting of the Arab Parliamentary Union in Algiers, he condemned the dire situation in Palestine and denounced the genocidal war committed by the Zionist occupation against Palestinians.
Our meeting coincides with extremely dangerous developments at the regional and international levels, with profound repercussions on our Arab region, foremost among which is the situation in Palestine, with racist killings and heinous crimes committed by the Zionist occupation against our Palestinian brothers. This entails the continuation of a colonialist project aimed at liquidating the Palestinian cause, destroying the region, and plunging it into a quagmire of violence and chaos.
The President of the Arab Parliamentary Union urged exploring methods to hold the Zionist entity accountable for its crimes in Gaza, emphasizing the need for constructive initiatives to strengthen Arab parliamentary action.
Given that the situation in Gaza and the Palestinian territories will be at the forefront of our Congress agenda, I call for the necessity of proposing constructive and concrete initiatives to strengthen Arab interparliamentary work, particularly at the level of the Interparliamentary Union, and the examination of all mechanisms and avenues that will enable us to pursue legal action against the Zionist occupation for its crimes.
Boughali urged the Arab nation to regain a robust presence on the international stage, supporting regional efforts such as securing full membership for the State of Palestine in the United Nations.
It is time to restore a strong and effective presence for our Arab nation on the international stage. We have seen what has been achieved at the United Nations General Assembly through its historic resolution related to the application for full membership status of the State of Palestine, thanks to the unification of voices.
Moving on to other developments in our news, the Sahrawi government cautioned against the Moroccan regime's escalation of tactics to justify its occupation of Western Sahara. Sahrawi Republic's ambassador to Algeria, Abdelkader Taleb Omar, revealed at an international seminar in Algeria that the regime is collaborating with criminal networks to undermine the Sahrawi cause outside UN and international legitimacy frameworks.
The Sahrawi struggle is entering a new phase of its strong experience in various fields, especially in relation to rights and legality. The Sahrawi issue is one of the strongest from a legal and judicial point of view, while the Moroccan regime is using injustice and organized crime to make its occupation of Western Sahara endure. The Sahrawis are using legality.
And in relation to the same issue, Russia reaffirmed support for a Sahrawi solution aligned with international legitimacy, including UN Security Council resolutions. This was stated after talks with Alexander Ivanko, the UN Special Representative for Western Sahara, emphasizing the need for a just resolution by both parties based on recognized international law. Participants in the celebration in Algeria on International Africa Day unanimously emphasized the importance of African youth uniting to support just causes globally, with particular focus on the Palestinian and Sahrawi causes. The event, hosted by the Algerian African Dialogue and Good Neighborhood Network, saw the attendance of over 450 African academics residing in Algeria, as well as civil society organizations.
To promote peace and security in Africa here in Algeria as a state, an extension of a popular dimension linked to the values that achieved Algeria's independence. This is also linked to a very strong message of the Liberation Revolution, which is considered today, on this occasion, a unification of the values through which the organization of the African Union was adopted.
On the 61st anniversary of the founding of the African Union, in this celebration, I have a positive impression and feelings. I had the great honor to participate with my African brothers in Algeria. This day has a very important symbolism in terms of holding our identity on the continent.
Time to catch up on more news stories with Islam Sid in the News in Brief.
G7 finance ministers convened in Italy are exploring the use of frozen Russian assets to support Kiev, with the EU proposing annual funds of up to 3 billion euros for Ukraine's defense, and the US seeking loans of up to $50 billion, with asset interest as collateral. Progress was reported in discussions on generating revenue from these assets, ensuring compliance with international law. Simultaneously, the ministers are planning to intensify Western sanctions on Russia in response to Ukraine conflict, focusing on diminishing Russia's income sources, including energy revenues and future extraction capabilities. China ended its military drills around Taiwan, denouncing what it sees as separatist remarks by Taiwan's new president. State television confirmed the successful completion of the maneuvers. Meanwhile, Beijing warned of a potential conflict as its ships and fighters encircled Taiwan, aiming to test its ability to seize the island after its president's inauguration. In Papua New Guinea, a massive landslide buried over 300 people and 1,000 houses in a remote village in the northern part of the country. Local media fear hundreds may have died in the landslide, while emergency teams recovered 4 bodies so far, with a death toll expected to rise. A sudden hailstorm struck the city of Puebla in Mexico on Friday, covering the streets with heavy layers of ice amid scorching temperatures across the country. 48 deaths from extreme heat wave have been recorded in the past 2 months, with nearly half occurring in the past week alone. The Ministry of Health stated that 956 people have been received treatment for heat-related illnesses since mid-March.
And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our news comes to a close. If you want more details or catch up on stories that you missed, you can always visit our social media platforms. Thank you for tuning into our channel. Until next time, take care.